Hello, friends. It's the top of the hour. Welcome to the week of August the 19th. Where on earth August has gone, I have no idea. And welcome back to our latest session of Coaching to Confidence, our weekly conversation about real estate and your success. I'm Chris McGatt, the other Chris, and I head up the coaching division right here at Leaders Edge Training. Oh, yes, we have got a great show in store for you today. And of course, we've got that live Q&A coming up right there at the bottom of the hour. Now, speaking of that Q&A, don't delay. Now is a perfect time to go ahead and drop that question or even comment. We love your comments right there into the Zoom Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll be sure to cover that during the second half of today's session. Now, as you know, every week we do stream live to make sure that we're bringing you topics that are both timely and relevant. As you know, each week we cover one of four different areas. We're either covering lead generation, helping you build your client base, sales skills to close more deals, inspiration to stay motivated or focused, or your business structure. Because folks, we have all got to figure out better ways of working more efficiently and more effectively in order to reach our goals. So let's get on to today's topic. Mastering buyer representation strategies for success under the new NAR rules. Get ahead of the game as the new NAR rules take effect August 17th, which was 2 days ago, by mastering communication, client communication, and that trust building segment. So today, Chris is going to walk us through 4 innovative and proven strategies to help you excel with your buyers. Learn exactly what to say at that first point of contact. How to effectively communicate your unique value proposition, so important. Discover the most successful ways to discuss your fee, something that cannot be ignored moving forward. And most importantly, how to ensure your buyer representation agreement, that BRA, gets signed on the first attempt. This session is completely it's your key to winning more clients and making this transition as smooth as possible. Now, do me a favor. Grab your phone. This is by request. You guys requested this. Open up your camera and take the opportunity right now to scan this QR code and download the free highlights of today's session. It's great to have some material to be able to reference. It goes fast. If you missed the slide, sorry about that. I'll have Chris post it in the beginning of his actual session coming up. Now, speaking of starting, help me welcome nationally recognized real estate sales expert, Chris Leader. Chris, it is always such a pleasure to see you. How was your weekend up there in Toronto?
It was rainy and it's getting cold, and believe it or not, it kind of feels like fall, Chris. But you know what? Labor Day is just over the horizon and it's time. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But listen, before I get to the news, I wanted to say to everybody that's watching the show today, I understand as a lifetime real estate professional who's made his entire living off of commissions, I understand how difficult change is. You know, we have a busy job as it is. When somebody adds change in, it's not that I think in most cases we're afraid of change. It's just we don't have the bandwidth to do the work that's necessary to make the adjustment while we're still trying to do the work of everyday, looking after our everyday files. And I have to say that at times like this, when I was a manager, I really relied on what I called the 3H principles of management. And it usually kicked in, Chris, when one of my agents opened the door of my office and said, "Hey, boss, have you got a minute?" That's a red flag in management. All right. And what I knew at that moment is I would have to apply 1, 2, or all 3 of these strategies. Sometimes they just need to be heard. Sometimes they need to be helped. And sometimes they need a hug. And I think today all 3 of those are probably the case. But listen, from a person who's spent 45 years in the business, I've seen all kinds of changes. And I want you to know everything's going to be okay. In fact, it's not even going to be okay. It's going to be better than okay.
It is.
I think these changes are going to contribute significantly to the agents that are excellent and challenge the ones that are not, either to be better or to get out of the way, so the rest of us who are truly committed to delivering an amazing experience for our clients are able to march forward and continue to deliver on the business models we've made. So I think it's all good, Chris. If anything,
Chris, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I was just going to make a quick comment. As you know, my daughter and her husband are in the business. They do about 30 million a year, and I was tracking them all weekend, right? Because in Palm Beach, the area that we live in, the MLS took down all the co-op numbers on Thursday, and so things were changing very quickly. And what it reminded me about was, for all of us on the call, think about your very first listing presentation. Think about your very first offer you ever wrote. Think about how clumsy and awkward and uncomfortable it was. But then think about the confidence that you built up over time. For many of us, we're having to go back to some of those initial feelings, that emotional feeling of, I'm usually completely confident, know everything about the business. And now for a moment or two, I don't. But like you said, Chris, we're going to come out of this better. We're going to come out
Yeah.
stronger. But
Yeah.
everyone's feeling the same way. You're not alone.
So for the managers out there, give them a hug, give them some direction so that they understand what they're doing. And sometimes we got to listen to them blow off a little steam and put those three together, and you'll have an ironclad grip on your sales team from a retention perspective. They know that you care about them. Hey, listen, it's time. Maybe I should kick right into the news, Chris. There's not a lot right now that we've got going on. What I was going to say is that I think the thing that's going to take a lot of air out of the environment is going to be the election. The closer we get to the U.S. election, the more people are going to get distracted with that. Um, so I just want you guys to be aware of that. Moving forward, it doesn't matter if you're on what side of the border you're on. We're seeing rates come down. And I will say that from the Canadian side, they've had two rate drops, a quarter point each, 50 basis points over the last couple of months. The first one in June didn't have any impact. The second one in July, talking to brokers now, and of course we don't have the closed deals yet to substantiate this, but they're saying the offices are busy again. So the extra quarter point bump seemed to be enough to kind of get the buyers off the sidelines and back into the marketplace. For everybody that's listening to this, and I know that the Fed is probably going to drop one more time. They're actually scheduled in the U.S. to drop twice before November's election, but I don't think they will as they get close to that election because the Fed doesn't want to get involved in the politics of it all. So that second rate drop might not happen until after the November election. But in saying that, what I'm really going to say to you is your markets are going to start picking up again. And this is a prime time at the end of the summer when most people have taken their eye off the ball and they're getting those last little bits of holidays in. They are getting, in some cases, depending on where you are on the continent, the kids are getting ready to go back to school. And I know some places they've already gone back, but going back to school. What I'm going to say to you is this is a perfect time for us to work not just on our business, not just in our business, but on our business. And you've got some fence sitters that you need to get back into the marketplace, people who are going to postpone. Listen, the market's going to pick up after Labor Day. We're going to run strong right through to the holidays. And the agents that are preparing now for capture that opportunity will finish really strong. So that's kind of the news in a nutshell. Rates are coming down. The business is going to get better. The rest of you need to prep and get ready, and don't squander this time. Use this time to propel your business forward. So today's topic, we want to navigate these changes in the real estate market. And as much as I will touch on some of the technical stuff, I'm really a soft skills guy. I'm really about how you emotionally connect to people and how you make them feel comfortable and persuade them that you're the right salesperson to handle, or you're the right person to handle this opportunity for them. So you'll see me lean into that content because I'm all about EQ, making that emotional connection with human beings and developing a relationship-based business. Now, as Chris said earlier, we put this QR code up for you. We've been getting requests from people who would like some of the slides from the presentation. So grab your camera, shoot the QR code right now, and then you'll have access to that. We do have a couple of other QR codes coming up with some giveaways today for you to add to your repertoire and your toolbox, and I'll stop on those when we get to them. So this week's changes in real estate. While it portrays these changes as monumental, I believe they're very subtle, to be honest with you. Let's just put all these changes away. For a second, if I went back into my history when I sold real estate, which is a long time ago, I got to tell you, at a certain point, I would get frustrated when one of my buyer prospects, remember we didn't have agency back then, one of my buyer prospects would wander off and buy a house from somebody else. So I needed to really reinforce the relationship. And I did that by taking people into a buyer's presentation, inviting them into the office before we went and looked at houses, getting to know them on a personal level, trying to understand what they wanted in a house and what they needed in a house, talking about the location in relationship to commuting to work or kids going to school or the type of community they wanted to be in. Then I'd take out in those days, if you can imagine, take out the MLS book and we would talk about the properties that are presently available. And we'd actually have to call the seller's agent and have a discussion about booking an appointment. And we'd book those appointments and we'd go out and look at those houses and we bring them back. The point I'm trying to say is that buyer presentation that we're going to talk to you about is something the really great agents who work on the buyer side of the transaction have been doing forever. Now, do I think that you need to customize, polish, and maybe update the answers? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the world today is not the world I was in. But understand that from a guardrails perspective or that the way we did it hasn't changed that much. So what are the 4 areas that I need to talk to you about today? The initial conversation with a buyer prospect. Like, what are you going to say to them that's going to make them feel comfortable, confident, and want to sit down and have a discussion with you? And then the second piece of that is when we start talking to them about what are the services we supply to the buyer side of the transaction to make it comfortable, make it easy, reduce the stress or eliminate the stress altogether. What is it that you do for a buyer? And you do a lot of really, really great things. But I think we've done a terrible job, generally speaking, in communicating what we do. It's kind of the magic that happens behind the curtain. They don't even know what's going on. And you're doing all these things. If they knew what you were doing, it would establish more value. So this is really about telling the story of what a real estate transaction looks like from the moment they enter your office today to the moment they're getting the keys on closing. What happens in that space? And there's a lot that happens, guys. Don't depreciate this. And if anything, the last pandemic market has made us weak, soft, and hasn't made us as organized. People got lazy. I talked to a broker this week. They told me this week, one of their agents who sells a bit of real estate got into the business during the pandemic. This was the first time they actually presented an offer. Everything had been done digitally, nothing physically. And the agent was like, oh, this was so much fun. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, don't get away from the basics. And then the third thing I want to talk to you about is how do you talk about how much you charge? I mean, it always seems awkward when we talk money and it feels uncomfortable and it feels kind of cheapens the situation. But today, the way the situation is set up, you're going to have a discussion about your fees for service, what you're going to do, and what people should understand how it works. And then finally, securing the commitment from the buyer. That's really code for getting them to sign your BRA. Now, when I was selling, we didn't have BRAs. So how did I get that commitment? Well, at the end of my buyer's presentation, I'd say, so guys, based on everything I've showed you, I want you to understand if you buy a house from anybody else, then I'm not going to get paid for all the work I'm about to do. I only get paid on successful completion of a sale. So I want to ask you, are you today committed to using me as your agent to acquire the property that you're looking for? And they would say yes. And I'd say, well, I'll tell you what. And I'd reach across the table and I'd shake hands and I'd look them in the eye because I knew 99% of the population would stand behind that handshake as a commitment. Now, today you have a tool that I didn't have, the BRA. So not only can you ask for that handshake, but you can get them to sign the actual commitment. Now, handling that initial conversation with prospects, but buyer prospect. The question that's going to come up is how does the industry changes affect you? Now, if you make a mountain out of a molehill, you're going to send your buyer prospects running in the other direction. What I need you to do is reassure your clients that these changes are really minimal. And in fact, if they're anything, they're positive because we've added transparency to the transaction that wasn't there before. This way, everybody understands the costs involved, the services that are being supplied, the minimum standards that a person should receive, the expectations are in alignment. This is all good, really, really good. Transparency emphasizes the shift from the fees included in the purchase price to separating them out so the buyer understands how much is being contributed towards the purchase of this property and where those fees and dollars need to come from. This is a good thing, guys. So what I need you to do is reassure people this isn't a big deal. The real estate transaction, for the most part, hasn't changed that much. You're going to meet them in the office. You're going to find out what they're looking for. You can help them get their mortgage documents organized. You're going to take them out and look at houses. You'll listen carefully. You'll find the right property. Your job as a buyer's agent is to negotiate on their behalf. You're going to do everything you can to get that offer accepted in your negotiations. Then you're going to do all of the work that happens after the offer is firm but not yet closed, amendments, extensions, waivers, and get the information to the title, the lawyers. You're going to have the home inspections, the buyer inspections. You're going to be there on the day of closing. You're going to bring them a housewarming gift, and you're going to love them for the rest of your life. That's what a real estate professional does. Not transactional, relationship. And that client is going to turn into 3 or more sales over their lifetime, and they're going to recommend 2 or 3 people to you every year in real estate because of the quality of your work, your attention to detail, and that you absolutely love these people, and it is a privilege to work for them. Hey, has the deal changed? I don't think so. It sounds pretty much like the way we always did it when you were at the top of your game. Now, importance of meeting the person. You want to meet people. You don't want to have these really intricate discussions over a phone or over texting or in some sort of digital communication. Never discuss your fees over the phone. You're going to get calls from people right now. How much do you charge? And I'm going to say, well, you know, what we need to do before we make that decision is we have to sit down and take a look at all the services that we have so you can decide what level of service you might want. I do want you to know that our fees are negotiable. And I think that the NAR settlement makes that point, that we have to tell people the fees are negotiable, and it really depends on how much you want me involved, what the quality of this experience is going to look like. And I'd like to show you all the different strategies we have at our disposal to deploy. But how much it costs, we really need to sit down and find out if we're even a good fit. So with your permission, what I'd like to do is find some time this week, maybe Thursday afternoon or Saturday morning. We need to get together, have a cup of coffee, get a sense of who we are. I want to find out what you're looking for, so I have an understanding of how much resources and how much time is going to be required to make sure you're happy with the purchase of your next property. So let's not talk fees yet. Let's get a chance to meet. Let's get together. Let's have that coffee. Let's get to know each other. And I promise you, I will unfold all of the strategies that I have in my toolbox, and we'll have a meaningful discussion about what it looks like for you from a fee perspective. Keep in mind, if I am working for you, there is a very good chance in some cases, the sellers may be looking at paying those fees in any case. But let's not have that discussion until we sit down. I want to find out more about what it is you're looking for, and let's figure out what it looks like to make you happy. So that's what I would do with handling that initial conversation. Don't fall trap to giving out your fees. Don't fall trap to telling them, giving up your secret sauce over the phone or in communication, because all they're going to do is shop you against another agent. And their position is, I'm going to get the agent at the lowest possible price. And you and I both know the agent at the lowest possible price generally does the worst job imaginable, because they're not being compensated accordingly and cannot afford to deploy the services, strategies, tools, and resources that would be of the best benefit to the buyer. But all of this discussion has to happen in person. Your job as a sales professional, when you're talking to somebody or you're communicating digitally, is you need to, that you never sell over a phone, you never sell digitally. Your job is to get face to face, nose to nose, toes to toes, and belly button to belly button with those live prospects, so we can determine, is this really a qualified person? I'm going to give you some more tips on that in a minute. Now, defining that value proposition and understanding your value. So what I need you guys to do is, you want to clarify your services that you're offering. You want people to understand what the toolbox looks like. You want them to come away with the appreciation that you are an expert in your field, and you can guide them through one of the most complex, litigious transactions they're going to do in the next 5 years. On top of that, if they're going to make this decision to have you represent them, they need to know you know the local real estate market. This is going to be a change in a lot of agents' business, especially the transactional ones that continue to do business far afield. They don't specialize. Your value in the mind of a prospect who wants to buy a house is going to go up significantly if you are the local expert. So I need you to focus on your farm market, your local market, a niche market, something you need to be a specialist in, because you're going to get less pushback from a commitment perspective, and you're going to get less pushback from a commission perspective if you are an expert. I've always said to you, who gets paid more, a family doc or a surgeon? And you always say to me in my classes, the surgeon gets paid more. And I say, why does the surgeon get paid more? And you say, because they specialize. All right, you want to protect your fees? Bring a tremendous amount of knowledge to the type of property I want to buy as a prospect. Then you need to go on and let them know that you are skilled in your negotiations. And I need you to be a negotiation expert. That's part of your everyday job. And you need to negotiate on behalf of your buyers in a buyer relationship. You need to communicate with them. Your job is to protect their interests, help them get the perfect house, and get it at the right price. That's your job. And you'll be doing that. And then from a time savings perspective, the convenience, because you understand intimately all of the stuff that needs to go on in that transaction. I think probably what I prefer, or what is important to me as a consumer, if I was hiring you, is peace of mind. One of the things one of the primary reasons somebody decides to use you is because you give them confidence that you're going to eliminate the stress in a very stressful situation. It's often said that moving ranks right up there with divorce and death at the stress level of people. And I say that because people look at moving as being incredibly stressful. You need to say to them, it probably is, or it could be if you worked with somebody else. But if you work with me, my job is to eliminate your stress. I don't think buying a home should be scary. I think it should be fun. Now, if there is stress, and there always is, it's my job to absorb that stress. You should have a stress-free, worry-free experience. This should be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. I want you to know that it's a privilege for me to have the opportunity to work for you as we turn the page in the next chapter of your life. Do I expect there will be problems? There generally is, but that's my job is to make your problems go away. That dialogue in itself will get you the bump in commission that you're struggling to wonder, are they going to go whatever your commission rate is? We can't talk specific commission rates because we got all these different agents on from different companies, and I don't want the DOJ to assume that we're conspiring to set fees. We're not. You charge whatever you want, you do whatever you want, you create your own package, you do your own thing, but your value goes way up. I'll pay a premium to any service that makes my life easier and can guarantee it. So if you can guarantee the quality of the work, the attention to detail, a stress-free situation, I'll pay the premium. I don't even want to know a problem exists. And when it does, I want you to fix it. I want to be able to just show up at my new house on moving day with the moving trucks and tell people to put stuff in, and I am happy. Now, to get me to that point, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in a real estate deal on the other side. That's your job, to calm the chaos, take the problems away, and make it an enjoyable experience. So defining your value proposition, being prepared, and I would also say to you, it's important that you practice your pitch. Create that value proposition, define your unique agent value proposition, and this will increase your credibility. Your presentation needs to be relevant, and you need to be able to differentiate yourself from everybody else. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, then you're going to have a conversation about your commissions. But if you're delivering an amazing experience that elevates yourself above the average, you are definitely, King Kong in your marketplace, then people are drawn to that and they're less likely to push you on commissions. When I'm trying to decide who I'm going to hire, credibility is important. The perception of integrity and your expertise and your competence. If I got to have work done at a doctor, I want a doctor that's an expert, somebody who's done it a number of times, whatever the procedure is, and they come across as being competent and interested in me and my well-being and my health. I need you to deliver that same experience to people. And the second item I had on my list is to the degree of which something is important and particular, and the subject and the content to the situation. So what I'm trying to say is your presentation needs to be relevant. Now you're saying to me, well, do I have to customize the presentation every time? And I say, no. What you want to do is have your standard buyer's presentation, but the items that are most important will be the items that are most important to your client. You lean into those and you mention the other stuff. And then you got to be able to differentiate yourself. The process of strategizing and delivering something that's unique in terms of features, services, qualities, all of that sets you apart. So let me ask you this, under your buyer presentation, and I'm assuming you got one now because we've been talking about this for weeks. So I'm assuming you all got one, you're all digitally tuned up and ready to go. Is your presentation filled with strategies and activities that are different than other agents? And are you delivering more for the money, more bang for the buck? Have you supersized your presentation and your services so that you can set yourself apart from the rest of the people in the industry? Because if your presentation is just the same, the question is going to turn to commission. What do they say in the old commission stuff? In the absence of value, the conversation turns to commission. So what I'm asking you is, what's your value? What are you doing? What's the marketing look like? What's your digital presentation look like? How are you in terms of the local real estate market? What type of impact have you had in the market that my house is in? What services, what videography, what photography, what drone shots, twilight shots? I mean, are you staging? What does all this look like? And are you bringing such a marketing strategy to this opportunity that it really gives me a sense, number one, I'm proud of the work that we are doing as a homeowner and with my agent. It's attracting a lot of attention. And my home sold relatively quickly under the current market conditions, given the fact that the agent did a great job. Now, defining that value proposition and creating that welcoming environment. First impressions are really important. You're going to meet your buyer at the office in most cases. I like the office because it's professional, it's organized, and you have some privacy. Now, if you want to build, you want me to appreciate you as a professional, make sure you're early, you're organized, and you're prepared, and you have a friendly attitude. Nobody wants a cranky real estate agent. Nobody wants Debbie the Downer as the real estate agent. You got to bring pause. When's the best time to buy a house? Right. We often go to business because we're feeling a little uncomfortable about what we're about to do. So we dive right into the presentation. This is a mistake. The mistake is because you have to build the connection first. You have to get into rapport with the client first. You know, the old cliche, people don't care what you know. What they really want to know is, do you care about me? And you got to do the little things that are necessary to build that connection. Show up on time, be prepared, look professional, smile, friendly, and talk to them about something other than real estate for a few minutes. And you say, what do I talk to them about? And I say, Ford, family, occupation, recreation, or dreams. Get that conversation rolling. You know, one of Laura Rittenberg is a mentor of mine. She's a fabulous real estate person, and I always remember her saying that she liked to start her conversation with, "Why don't you tell me your story?" And I love that because it seemed so friendly and folksy, but it got to the heart of the matter, which I thought was beautiful. And then we want to establish trust, and that trust has got a lot to do with your knowledge and your experience and your commitment to the clients. All of that is part of that. So that trust really comes with, do you know the local real estate market? Do you know what's going on from a pricing perspective? Do you know how quickly houses are selling? What homes are worth? Because I'm about to make a big decision and I need somebody that I can count on. So then the next one I have for you guys is overcoming, confidently discussing your fees and overcoming that discomfort that you might be feeling. Now, I understand how it feels uncomfortable when you're talking about something when it comes to price. You know, nobody likes it. It's like people, it's like receivables. People in business have a hard time with receivables. They don't like to make those calls when somebody owes them money. It's kind of the same feeling in a sense. And often I find when it comes to commissions, we in the industry are being taught to demand our fee. This is the fee that I get. And I like to change out the word from demand to command. I know it's a subtle change, but the difference is I command fees by doing a great job, not demanding them because this is my fee. So I really like the fact that you're commanding it based on your expertise, your knowledge, and your local intimate understanding of the market. And then a client-centric approach. What I'm saying to you here from a client-centric approach is that too many agents are in the business. And I've spent a lifetime, I spent 25 years teaching real estate agents. Too many people get in the business with the attitude, what's in it for me? And they struggle every day because they never find themselves in a situation where they have ongoing repeat business. You never do it to your clients, you always do it for your clients. And I know this is hard when we're in a commission-based business. I say that because we're often driven by goals. We're held accountable by our coaches. We're expected to meet certain minimum standards, and we are pushed. And our appetite for success can often we can get out over our skis with that. So there's always a balancing act. Look, I want you to be the best version. I want you to sell a ton of homes, but you never do it to people. You always do it for people. And this is really a shift. And I'm going to say to you, are there people who will take advantage of you? The answer is yes. But in the end, the only person they hurt is themselves, because they would be blessed and fortunate to have a person like you, the quality, your attention to detail, and the work you put into everything. They would be blessed to have somebody like you represent them in a real estate transaction. So don't hang on to the negative stuff. Put it down. I have a little phrase that I live by. Acid corrodes the container it's carried in. Put down the bad crap. Listen, yesterday's gone. Don't hang on to that. Move forward with the next opportunity and the next great set of clients you're going to meet. Do it for your clients. Always give them more than their money's worth. Go the extra mile. Be thoughtful, be kind, be generous, be sensitive, be empathetic, but most of all, be there for them. Now, approach coming in, we need clear communication coming in. You need to be able to communicate clearly on the changes that have taken place and the forms that go with it. And then we have to be really good in being able to convince people in our value. We've got to be really good at laying out what we do in our presentations and why it's so valuable for them. Now, I want to go into 6 tips to qualifying your buyers, and I want to finish up with these 6 tips, Chris. The first one I have for you is the importance of qualifying your buyers is crucial to ensure that people can afford the homes you're showing them. So what I need you to do is I need you to make sure that they're financially qualified. You know, we had a habit before this happened, before we had to talk about BRAs and how much we charge and, you know, how long the buyer representative agreement was going to be for, what area it was going to cover and how long it was going to cover it and all of that. Before we had to do all of that stuff, we were always taught to qualify our buyers financially. So one of the things I would do in that initial buyer's appointment is I would book your loans officer. It only elevates you from a professional perspective. And it also says to your buyer, it says to you from a buyer client perspective, how serious they are, because your loan officer is going to want probably T4s or 1099s, letter of employment, most recent pay stub, all of the information that they're looking for. Listen, when a buyer shows up at your office on a Saturday to go look at houses and they bring that information in with them, what are they really saying to you? This is important, and I brought my information. It's a qualifier. You want to start changing your dialogue a little bit, but instead of saying what this costs or what you're going to need to spend, we want to talk about investment. We want to say it's an investment. Having the buyers fill out the qualification forms from a financial perspective, and here's another little phrase I want you guys to build in. Don't say to them, how much money have you got for a down payment? Say, how much of your savings would you like to use towards the purchase of your next property? It doesn't say to them, oh, that's only what you got. It's like, this is what they can afford. So it's a softer, easier set of words. How much of your savings would you like to purchase of the next property? Remember, drop the words cost, start using the word investment, and you're going to find that it's going to feel a little bit better. Ask your buyers if they would be willing to in getting more or less of a home in terms of location. So what I'm saying to you here is we want to broaden the margins, because they'll come in with some very specifics, but you want to make sure you don't miss a house because you didn't push the margins out a little bit. Like they may very well have gone for that bigger house in a less expensive location, or they may have gone for a smaller house in a more expensive location. But you wouldn't normally have those conversations if you only listen to what they say. Let me say this to you, and I'll put it into context, and all of you who have done this for years know exactly what I'm talking about. How often have you sold a house to somebody who said, we want a ranch, and they bought a 2-story? How often have you sold somebody a house, they said, we want to buy a contemporary, and they buy a Victorian? Somebody says, I want some acreage, and they buy in town. Somebody says, I want to be in town, and they buy acreage. you just never know. And I'll tell you what people buy. They buy the first house they get a feeling for that they like. You as a professional, and here's where the soft skills come in. You got to have that intuition. You got to be able to read people and read between the lines. You got to measure them up. And even if you're going to show them a house that doesn't necessarily fit what they asked for, but you know in your heart this is going to be the right house for them, what I need you to do is say, hey, I'm going to add one more to the tour. It doesn't check any of our boxes, but I think at the same time, it gives us something to compare to. I just want you to see what's going on out there before you make decisions. Now, understand something. I've lowered their expectations. They're not going to buy this house as far as they're concerned. So when they go into the property with you, they're going to explore it instead of putting it under a microscope. And more than times than not, I can tell you, I couldn't even begin to tell you the number of times in my life I sold somebody a house that they had no interest on paper in buying, but when they got in it, they were like, oh, we really like this. I know this is different, but I thought I would like you to see it. So don't discount stuff. And then encouraging the buyers to participate in the search. You really can't choose houses for people, even though you're going to develop some intuition and add some stuff into the exercise. What I need them to do, and it's for you, I need you to sit with them and have those discussions about what they like and what they don't like. Even if you end up selling them something else, those are hidden tells. And if you sit and you watch and you listen and you ask, you're going to find yourself with a complete understanding of what the buyer is looking for. And this is only going to get you closer to the right property. It's going to make it happen quicker. I want you to narrow the selection after we've widened it. Then I want you to bring it back down again and narrow it down. Now, if you look at the first properties and they're not right, then we go out a little bit on the second showing to the perimeter and the third until we find the perfect property for them. Now, I know some of you are thinking, what is this guy? He's actually showing houses to somebody on 3 different days? I mean, the houses will be gone, maybe in a previous market. But in a lot of your markets now, like Austin, for instance, or some of the Toronto market, in different marketplaces around the country, stuff staying on the market 30, 60, 90 days now. And what you saw last week is still there next week. And sometimes you're going to have to show the same house to the same buyer twice or 3 times before they finally make a decision. And there won't be, in many cases, people bidding against you. And there won't be a lineup at the door. And both the buyer and the seller are going to have to compromise when the offer comes in. And that compromise very well may be that the seller is willing to make a contribution now towards concessions to make their house more attractive than somebody else's to get you to buy it. What is that code for? Maybe they'll pay some of the buyer's commission. Maybe they'll pay all the buyer's commission. Maybe they'll reduce the price. Maybe they'll add some chattels in. Maybe they'll be flexible on closing date. Maybe they'll buy a home warranty for the buyer to make it more attractive. There's lots of different ways to doing this. And then once we've found the potential homes for the buyers, we want to ensure that the sellers are willing to work with us. Here's one of the great takeaways, Chris, from the change. All our agents now as buyers, as far as I can tell, are going to have to reach out to the seller's agent. And they're going to have to say, hey, I want to show your home on Saturday. And they're going to say, oh, great, thanks so much. We're really excited. I'm hoping that your buyer's interested. By the way, I know that we can't advertise it. It's not anywhere. We can't, it's not in the MLS anymore, but is the seller making any sort of concessions or making anything available to make the property more attractive? This is beautiful, guys, because don't think you're going to get to know the other agents, which is great, which is only going to increase the likelihood of success in your negotiations because it becomes personal, not digital. And then don't be surprised when you're talking to the buyers or the seller's agent if they say, hey, listen, if you like this property, I listed one last night as well. Maybe you should see both of them. And I'd be like, oh my God, that's so great. I really appreciate that, Sally. Now you're making a friend with a cooperating broker. We're working collectively for the benefit of both parties. We're looking for a meeting of the minds. Your job's not to fleece the other side and their job's not to fleece you. We're all going to come together. We're going to cooperate, support, and be helpful. We're all in this together. And the pros understand this. So Chris, that's my rant for the day. And I tell you, there was a lot that I put in there. This week's assignment this week will be to get out there and with the 4 steps in your buyer's success, go through those, understand them. And the QR code's up there. I forgot. Hold on, let me go back one. Jarrett, go back one slide for me. I just buzzed off that QR code. In case they want to get a copy of the slides, Chris. Jarrett, it went away again. Oh, there we are. Oh, no, it went away, really went away. So my show flow there, Jarrett. Back to the slide with the, there it is. Hold on, Jarrett. Don't move now. Don't touch the button. you get a chance to get our slides, and that would be really helpful. Moving forward, did you find today's session good? Listen, Chris and I have tried to tackle the technical stuff, but for me, it's always the soft skills. It's connecting with human beings. It's that kindness, that consideration, that respect, that attention to detail, and loving your clients, loving them through a very difficult time with a difficult decision and being the person they're counting on. So give us a great review so that we can continue to grow this. And if you liked what we showed you, giving you a QR code that's going to help you with the pre-listing package. You can download this as well as one of the giveaways. This is great. And presentation, we wanted to make sure it was available for you. Chris, I want to get into questions now, if that's good with you.
Oh, let's do it. Absolutely. That was 36 minutes of fantastic content and lots of it. This will definitely be a program that I think, I'm going to review. I think others are going to review as well because of all that great content. Now, listen, as we go into this, I think one of the things that you mentioned, Chris, and I've seen it pop up a bunch here on comments that are coming in. This is not huge, massive news to most people, most consumers in the universe. Now, don't get me wrong. All the media wanted to make sure it was huge news because they were reporting on it and they were using it as a way to be able to engage with their listeners or subscribers or viewers. But folks, Chris said this. This is really normalizing, quite frankly, the business in a great way. It's two things. Don't forget that. One thing is no longer is there compensation in the MLS. That went away this past week. It's gone. Probably never to return in my lifetime or yours. Number two, it's having a written agreement with every single buyer that you show a property to, either virtually or in person. And that agreement must have one thing included, and that is it's got to have your fee. You can't dance around it. You can't ignore it. You can't cover it up. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of what you do and be proud of all those services that you provide. So that is the extent of it. But when you talk to your buyers going forward, if you say, hey, there are big changes, we need to discuss that, you're just going to scare them. Instead, just say, hey, listen, I look so forward to working with you as your representative in your buying process. Here are a few things we need to go over. Keep it as straightforward as that. Stay confident, stay strong. Chris, listen, there are a string of questions here. Let's get rolling. First question, David, thank you. What if a prospect will only meet with me after I divulge my commission or my fee? How would you approach that, Chris?
I would say to them that my fee is not standard. For me to give you a fee over the phone, only to find out that both of us may have negotiated the wrong terms, would be unreal, not good. And if the only reason you're choosing your real estate agent is based on how low will they go, you're really missing the big part of this whole exercise. And that's really about how strong are my negotiation skills at getting you the right house at the right price. How much is my local market knowledge so that, yeah, you may have saved on the fees, but you ended up paying too much because the agent you used wasn't a specialist. There may be products, tools, and resources to help streamline the process that you wouldn't be aware of that we would be able to access. But I will say this to you, Chris, my fee is fair and it is in alignment with the services that you're going to want. I'm willing to negotiate those fees, but we need to have a sit down and take a look at everything I'm going to do. Let me ask you this, Chris, is finding the right house at the right price important to you?
Very.
That's not level. You know, here's what you're doing, and I appreciate why. You're focusing the conversation on me instead of you. At the end of the day, what I get paid is irrelevant. How much you pay for the property and how much you get with the experience is paramount. So I appreciate you asking, but what we really need to do is sit down with a pencil and a pad, go through the numbers so that you have an understanding, take a look at the services, and then you and I can go and we can arm wrestle if we want to about what that commission dollar looks like or my fee for service. I am flexible, but we're not going to know that until I know what you want. I know where you want it, what that looks like. And at the same time, you know the quality of my work and what I'm capable of. So let's do this. With your permission, Chris, before you make that decision, would you sit down and have a coffee with me? It might take us 15 or 20 minutes to get to the answer that you're looking for. I have time Thursday, or would Saturday be better? So David, that's how I would answer that. And I think, what did I say? Well, I said a whole lot of nothing. And what I did get was what I told you to get, and that was the appointment face to face. And I
Yeah.
will say,
That's
David,
good.
if the person says to you, look, I'm not meeting with you unless you tell me, then I'm going to say, then we're probably not going to be a good fit. Because if the courtship starts out this way, the marriage ain't going to get any better. So you know what? And if you're saying, well, I
Yeah.
can't afford to lose the business, then I'm going to say what we have here is not a presentation or a communication problem. We have a prospecting problem. You don't have enough clients, so you are
That's
living in
right.
scarcity, not of abundance. So you got lots of people. I want you to be confident, not arrogant. I want you to maintain your humility, but you've got to maintain your protocols. Otherwise, you're going to end up out in the cornfield and you're going to be disappointed with the results. Next question, Chris.
Chris's words that work. I love that. Folks, also keep this in mind. Just because the MLSs no longer provide a co-op listing or amount in the MLS does not mean that sellers are not willing to offer compensation. NAR doesn't, we don't know for sure. We're going to know this in about a year, about 6 months, but NAR expects over 90% of sellers to still contribute towards the fee, just as they always have. They just can't advertise it the way they did before. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to a buyer. Make sure that's part of the conversation. Okay, Chris, let's I need my glasses. I'm at that stage. Okay. Miracel asks, love the saying. Can you repeat it, please? The comment about the acid will corrode the container, because that is a great quote. What is that quote of yours again, Chris, about the acid
I'd like to take
corroding the
credit for it,
container?
Chris, but it's not my quote. I'm a depository of information. So I spend vast amount of times reading, and it was I honestly, Maricel, I don't know where I got it from, but acid corrodes the container it's carried in. So I try to live by that because we all have situations in our life that come up that we're really, for a lack of a better term, really pissed about. And if you carry that negative energy with you forward, it affects the
Mhm.
opportunity that's in front of you. Listen, we all have crap in our life. You got to leave it at home and you got to put a big smile on your face when you head out every day to do business. And I promise you, if you do that, in your background becomes smaller and smaller as your bank account grows. One thing I can tell you is money fixes just about everything, or at least it gives us a reprieve from whatever is bugging us. And there's nothing like retail therapy to make me feel better. So, and I say that, big smile, and I tell you, whatever is bugging you, you won't even remember in a couple of weeks from now. So put it behind you. Acid corrodes the container it's carried in. Don't carry that negative crap with you. The only person it hurts is you.
Yeah. Amen. There we go. All right, Elizabeth, happy Monday to you as well. Chris, Elizabeth says, can you please clarify what it means when a brokerage is no longer offering buyer's agent compensation? There are brokerages that will no longer offer question mark. In those instances, what might an offer look like? What is the benefit for a brokerage to no longer offer or entertain buyer compensation? Thank you.
I think that the benefit, Elizabeth, is that they're afraid that their agents are not going to be able to conduct this conversation accordingly. And they're afraid they're going to position themselves where they're going to get into trouble. So the broker has adopted a very, very defensive position, basically saying, we're not doing this and we're going to play it safe. And you're on, and that's just the way it is. So you might see more of that, Elizabeth, in the big discount houses where they don't have the management oversight and they're just going to make it very cut and dry. Um, that way they reduce their liability to some degree. But I'd much rather see us train our agents up so that they're competent and confident, not leave them out of the
Oh,
opportunity.
yeah.
I would rather, Elizabeth, an agent call you and say, hey, it's Chris from ABC Real Estate. I want to show your house on Umpty Ump Street. I was checking to find out if there was going to be any consideration or compensation available on the buyer side. Elizabeth says, no, I'm sorry, Chris, we're not doing that. I say, thank you for that. I still like to show the house. That doesn't mean I'm not going to write in the offer that I'm asking for
Mhm.
compensation. I can still do that, and it comes down to each individual seller and the listing agent on how they want to deal with that. But I'd write it right in the offer. And I'd say, now we can offer, um, more money and they will pay our fees. We can offer less money and we pay our fees. I guess really what I'm saying, Elizabeth, at the end of the day, there's 100 pennies in a dollar. The one question, and I read about it this morning because I was up early reading again before I come to you guys, was what's going to happen with the loans? Because if the buyer doesn't have the money and we used to build it into the deal, so you're going to want to talk with your loans officers. VA right now I've suspended that for VA mortgages, but for the rest of us, the way the article was written, call your lender and find out what they might do. Will they finance a little bit higher around the appraisal? What does that look like? So really, Elizabeth, this is a conversation between two professionals trying to navigate the challenges and find a solution for the seller and the buyer. At the end of the day, it's not like saying, I'm not doing this. It's like saying, maybe we should consider this, and what does the result of it look like, and how would it benefit people?
Absolutely. And Chris, I would just remind everybody that the whole crux about this change has to do with transparency. And I also want to make sure we've got clarity. Co-op fees going forward, compensation going forward, is not coming from the brokerage. It does not come from the broker. It comes from the seller specifically. So for a brokerage to say overall, we're not going to participate in compensation, it's not their decision. It's the seller's decision ultimately to make and determine what's best for them in getting their home sold. So again, what we're going to run into, folks, it's not you on this call. It's not you in your offices. It's the other million plus agents that are out there that are not taking the time. They're not learning. They're not understanding what's going on. And sadly, you have to deal with them every single day. They don't have the level of professionalism and training that you do. What that means is you're going to have to put on your hat of being an educator sometimes in the transaction in a way that is non-combative, that is collaborative and supportive. But that's a role we're going to have to take going forward, because ultimately our job is to get transactions done for buyers and sellers that want to move forward. So
Hey, Chris, can I
great.
add something to that?
Yeah.
Let me
Oh,
add one more
please.
thing
Yeah.
to that. I
Yeah.
was going to say to you that often I find that real estate agents want to school the other real estate agent. Like, I'm going to teach you. Now, you leave the teaching to me. What you want to do in this case is say, hey, with your permission, could I make a suggestion? So you want to invite them in as from a collaborative perspective. Don't school the other agent. And I'm going to tell you that there is a giant number of agents that are wandering around the planet that are going to be lost. However they're going to navigate these conversations are going to be uncomfortable and bumpy. I need you as a professional to rise above that. I need you as a professional to get that buyer's offer accepted and get the seller who wasn't going to do something to do it. And I need you to be that pro. Do not get caught up in trying to teach the other agent. That's not
Yes.
your job. I mean, I say that, Chris. Yes, I want you to teach the other agent, but I want you to do it through being incredibly polite and not making somebody feel
Yes.
small. Build them up. Hey, let me help. Could I make a suggestion? Something somebody taught me. I'd love to pass it on. It's an act of kindness. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me that. Okay.
Excellent, excellent clarification. Okay, hey Kathy, California. Hope you are doing well. Kathy says in California, we have been told that we can advertise buyer side concessions anywhere but the MLS. Can you clarify? I can't because I don't have expertise here. Chris, have you been any reading about California?
I have read about it, Chris, but I don't want Kathy to hold me responsible for this. Okay, Kathy, I need you to go to your manager, and I need your manager to tell you what to do. But what I've read is you're right. We've had all kinds of funny things where they're going to put it on a sign. That seems pretty straightforward. I've had somebody say that they're going to cut their grass with a 2.5% in this case, on the front lawn. So agents passing by would know the seller's willing to pay. I've heard that it will be a secret handshake or a couple of winks for commission. A little code inside the lockbox that says we're going to pay. Now, Kathy, I'm making light of all of this, but I do think that based on what I've read on California, as long as it's not on the MLS, from what I understand, and I need you to clarify with your manager, I'll say it again and again. I'm not an expert in California law when it comes to this, but I have heard that you're going to be able to market out the fact that the seller wants to do this. I think, Chris, really what the DOJ is trying to avoid, and I think they were really bumpy about how they got here.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
What they want to avoid is people choosing listings, the agent choosing listings, not because it's best for their buyer, but because it was paying more. And I always said, I never understood that the code of ethics said we're not allowed to choose a house based on commission. But by the way, my seller's paying a bonus. that to me just seemed like, I don't understand this. I mean, you say we're not supposed to look here because of that, but we're going to make it real enticing for you to look here. So, um, I think now it's brought more transparency, probably more honesty to the situation.
Yeah.
It's clearer, uh, and I do think that if the seller wants to leave the furniture, be flexible on closing date, buy down the mortgage, or pay or contribute as a seller's assist to the closing costs, however that money is distributed between their buyer and the buyer's agent, it's up to them. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure the DOJ can reach that far to say that you can't do that. I think if the seller wants to sell his
No,
house for less than it's worth,
I don't think they want to. Yeah, I don't
if
think
they
they want to. I think yeah, I think there are other
yeah,
ways of doing this, right? And by the way, Kathy is one of our one of the top branch leaders, branch managers in California. It's always great to see you, Kathy. Kathy, I think also as we're learning our way through this, the tried and true ways are just they're going to work. Pick up the phone, call that listing agent, as Chris alluded to earlier, and just ask them: is your seller willing to offer compensation? Number one. I'm also seeing flyers or notices inside the home. We are happy to provide buyer compensation, right? And
Chris,
then ultimately, yes,
there's one more thing I want to add to your conversation. I
yeah,
read this morning an article written by the lawyer that was the lead person in of the lawsuit, the one who brought the class action lawsuit. And I got to tell you, the way the article read, this guy to me is like he's like a jerk. I don't know how else to say it. He was really a hard ass, and he said in his article, and I don't know Kathy. This is Kathy. Then you got to do some homework on this, Kathy. This is what he said. If a listing agent is suggesting that there is an opportunity for the buyer to take advantage of a situation, they're not protecting the seller's interests. So they should not be telling the world that there is the seller will offer concessions. And this is what that
that's right.
lawyer said. And so, Kathy, I need you to do some homework on this for your own preservation, self protection. Because the way he wrote the article this morning, I was like, oh my God. So I'm not allowed to tell them I'm going to leave the furniture. You got to just ask and hope that it gets accepted. I mean, so
Yeah,
we got some
guys,
bumpy ground here.
we're going to hear some crazy stuff, right? And you got to
Yeah,
use common sense around this. And
yeah,
everything that we're being told is pick up the phone, have a conversation, right? Number two, put it in the house. Number three, put it in your signature line. If you're a listing agent and you've got 5 listings and you're offering compensation, it's not you. Remember, it's the seller. The seller. But ultimately, where does it need to land? It's either got to land in one or two places. It's got to land in the purchase agreement, because you can have someone say, yeah, I'm willing to pay compensation as a seller, but if it's not in that list, not in that buy sell agreement, they're not going to get paid. You're not going to get paid, right? So make sure it's either there or in an actual fee agreement separate from the contract, but get it in writing. Oh my gosh, Chris, where does the time go? I'm going to try and throw a few more of these out here. Common sense, folks. Keep common sense in mind. Talk to your broker managers, talk to your legal counsel when you've got that. Everything we've said today is obviously subject to that oversight. Okay, Gary, if your office isn't private enough, what about meeting at the buyer's home? What a brilliant idea. Yes, just make sure you get with them face to face so that you have the time and you have the opportunity to walk through your value proposition and how all of this works. Chris, a question here from Monique. Monique says, this is gonna be our last one, by the way. So you give that condensed close to this one, Chris. Monique says, I call a listing agent about commission and he said, I will tell you when you make an offer. What is a good response to that?
Then I would go back to your client, Monique. I would look at the local market and what the home is worth. I would ask them what the buyer, what the buyer is willing to commit to. And then, as Chris said, Monique, draft it in the offer because everything
Put in the
becomes
offer.
negotiable. You know,
Yep.
it's all down to negotiations. I really hope, Monique, the answer you got was kind because it sounded a little bit cryptic and lacked a little kindness. So if we can take anything from that, if I was a listing agent, I'd say, I'm really in uncharted waters right now. I want to make sure that I stay compliant. I like the idea of getting an offer. So let me do this, Monique. Why don't you put something on paper, put it in the offer. We'll put it in front of the seller. The simplest way to do this is we'll run it up the flagpole and see what the seller's got to say about it. So tell you what, take your best shot, put it on paper, and let's get it in front of them, and let's start the conversation to see if we can get your buyer this house and I can get my seller moved. I want to do business with you.
Great next step. Oh my gosh. Listen, folks, a couple of things that are coming up. First of all, if we didn't get to your question, and there were a lot of them, I apologize. This is a hot topic, as it should be. Just simply grab your computer, grab your phone, send a quick email, ask Chris at leccoach.com. Chris got right back to you as quickly as possible. Also, a reminder about the recordings. We'll get the recordings out to you tomorrow by noon. You'll have them available for the entire week. Don't forget to get the downloads because there's great information there, and there will be every week going forward. We're thrilled to give that to you as your request. We need to wrap things up here. First of all, Chris, as usual, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for all the hard work you do in reading up on all these topics, staying abreast, and giving us confidence and giving us opportunities to be our very best in the business. To everyone that joined the call today, thank you for joining us and being a part of today's call. And until next week, remember, stay focused, stay optimistic, because there's so much to be optimistic about, and stay committed to being your very best version to ensure your best years are, in fact, your next years. Chris, we'll see you next week.
All right, guys.